All right, good morning, everybody. Today, our guest is Mr. Billy Bennett. Mr. Bennett, Billy, how are you?
Good. How's everybody?
Pretty good. Um, I know you said you're taking a break from another obligation, so I'll try to get right to the point here. Could you start off by telling us where you work and what your title is, and kind of a brief explanation of what you do?
Sure. I am the executive director of the Kentucky Environmental Education Council. So we are in the Commonwealth of Kentucky's Education and Workforce Development Cabinet. So my direct report is to the Deputy Secretary, and then our Secretary of the Cabinet is also the Lieutenant Governor of the Commonwealth of Kentucky. So we do a number of things. Number one, we're very small. So originally, when I first started in 2017, there was only two of us. There's myself and uh, Wesley Bullock, who is our environmental education specialist. And we work for a nine-member council that is appointed by the governor. And earlier this year, we had a complete turnover. So the previous governor, uh, at the midnight hour, replaced the entire council. So yeah, we've been dealing with that for a year. But actually, it's not nearly as bad as I thought it might be. So the things that we do a every 5 years we do a environmental education master plan for Kentucky. So we produce that, and we do that with input from all kinds of environmental education practitioners.
Mm-hmm.
We also do a survey of Kentucky adults. It's a telephone survey, random samples, and that was done by the Kentucky Center for Statistics, which works with the Bureau of Labor quite frequently. That's their major point, but they have a team of about 23 researchers. So we got them to do that survey for us. We produce and update the Kentucky Environmental Literacy Plan, and that is for K-12 schools. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
there's no there's no mandate that they have to use it, but it's just a tool to try to get Kentucky students becoming environmentally literate by the time they graduate high school. We have an AmeriCorps program. So if you're not familiar with AmeriCorps, it's kind of like the domestic Peace Corps, very
Mm-hmm.
similar, but they do things here in the United States. And we place members for national service with all kinds of nonprofits and governmental agencies across the state, and it's a wide variance.
I'm an
So,
AmeriCorps alum.
oh, really? Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's great. We're in our third year, so we're learning as we go. The first year was pretty rough, but we managed to survive, and we still have a viable program. So that's great for us. So some other things we do, we have a Kentucky Green and Healthy Schools program, which is an environmental service learning program. It's supposed to be led and directed by the students. They decide what the projects they want to do, and they do a project, and we recognize them for those projects categories that they do. There's 9 different categories. We also are the nominating body for the U.S. Department of Education's Green Ribbon Schools. So we invite schools to put in their applications. We go through, select the ones that meet the criteria that we feel, and put and send those on to Washington, where they're looked at and decided on those.
Mm-hmm.
We are trying to think of the other things that we do. Um, we are currently working with the Lieutenant Governor's office on a enhanced expanded summer learning program, and we're going to involve several different sites, one of them being EKU, doing some things to help kids get back into learning and to kind of catch up on some of the things they missed by being virtual most of the year. And we are also embarking on a outdoor school that's modeled after the program in Oregon. So that's an immersive outdoor experience for kids.
Well, let's dial back the clock a little bit. Where are you originally from?
So I'm originally from where I live right now. Like so many Kentuckians, I end up back in the spot where I was born. I did not plan on that. So I'll just give you just kind of a brief overrun of my life till now.
Sure.
So I graduated high school, had no desire to go to college, joined the Navy, left and was on active duty for 6 years, and then came back to my hometown, which like I said, I had no desire to do, but didn't have any place else to go, and came back. And then I did two things. I got a job at the fire department here in my hometown, and I was also in the Navy Reserve during that time. So I spent the next 14 years at the fire department, and in the Navy Reserve. I retired early by buying my military time back
Okay.
into the state, and so I'm retired from the fire department, and I also retired from the reserve shortly after that. Then after that, I decided I was going to go to school full time to become a middle school teacher. Going to save the world, one 12-year-old student at a time.
Yeah.
And then got my undergraduate degree in the middle of the school year, so there wasn't a whole lot of jobs. And then one of my professors, Dr. Melinda Wilder, said, "Hey, I have an opportunity," and I had her for several classes. And she said, "I have an opportunity here. I have an interim position open as the director of the Center for Environmental Education at EKU in the Division of Natural Areas." And so I said, "Sure, that sounds great, because I don't have a job and I would love to work somewhere." So
Yeah.
then I took that job, and then after about 3 or 4 months, she got word that they were not going to be able to fill that with a faculty position, which is what her desire was. And so I took the job on full time.
Okay.
During that time, I also did my internship year for my teaching certification and finished that up.
Okay.
So, and then after about 10 years there, we started having a lot of budget cuts, and my job was cut in the original 13 people that they first let go. And so then this job happened to come open about 3 or 4 months later than that, and I interviewed for this job and been in it ever since.
So how long have you been there now?
That's my history. I'm in my fourth year, so
Okay.
2017, January of 2017 is when I started.
Yeah. It doesn't seem like that long ago, but I guess it was.
Yeah, I know.
Well, I think about that too, because like I remember, I guess just because I saw you around at different conferences and whatnot, it was like you never really left, so I don't, it processes differently, I guess.
Right, same line of work,
Yeah.
So it turned out really well for me.
So when you think about like your transition from like the fire department into your teaching and into environmental education, when did you start thinking about environmental ed as a career path or a area of interest and stuff like that?
Well, it was during those undergraduate classes I had with Dr. Wilder. I mean, and then during some of the things I did, as we always are operating on grants. So we write grants and we get money and we do these projects with teachers. And I think it was when it really hit home with me when I was working on a grant with middle school. And I was working actually directly with a sixth grade language arts teacher, and coming up with lessons that those students could do. And that we were, so one thing we did was we took them out. They actually had a pretty good campus. So they had some deer on there and some other stuff in a wooded area.
Yeah.
And we went out and we were looking for signs of animals, and we were out there. And then at the end of that, we sat them down for about 20 minutes, and we had hula hoops spread out, because that's how you keep them from, sitting next to each other and poking each other and slapping each other upside the head. And they sat down and they had to write a story from a perspective of one of the animals that they saw signs for. And the teacher just looked at me and she said, because they were all just intent. I mean, they were all on it. They were all paying attention. They were all doing what they were supposed to do. And she said, I can't believe this is happening.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that was probably one of the pivotal moments when I said, this stuff works.
Yeah.
Using the environment to teach anything works because you can sit in a classroom all day and say, imagine if you're in a cave. But if you've actually been in a cave that day, then you can talk about that experience you've actually had. So that's probably one of the main influences. That's one that sticks out in my mind anyway.
Sure. Wait, so also when you look back at like your career in the fire department and the Navy, what kind of experiences did you have within those experiences? What did you bring with you that you think is transferable skills or transferable knowledge into what you do now?
Well, there's a couple of things. Number one is goal setting. So you obviously want to advance in rank in both of those situations, the Navy and the fire department. So, because that comes with more responsibility, but it also comes with more money, which is, also often a driving factor. So, I guess I learned at an early age, probably going all the way back to when I was in Boy Scouts. So, I wanted to become an Eagle Scout, and I set that goal and I did it. And then, at the fire department, I advanced, just started out as a firefighter. We absorbed the ambulance service that was separate, and then I became a paramedic, and then I became a lieutenant, and then I became the fire marshal. So I was a major, and it was just setting those goals and just not letting things not letting things stand in the way of my goals. And any kind of obstacles I had, I just found a way around them. And so I think that's the main thing about all these different paths, is just finding a way to do the things that you want to do.
Yeah. Well, it's one of those cliche sayings, but it's true. Like if you don't know where you're aiming at, you'll hit anything, right? If you don't know where you're going, any path will take you there. Mm-hmm. But I think that's it's super true. Is that if you understand where you want to go, even though there's obstacles, barriers, speed bumps, potholes, whatever you want to say it is, right? Keep your eye on the prize. You're more likely to circle around, overcome all that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. So you mentioned being a Boy Scout. What kind of childhood experiences did you have that made you fall in love with nature, or made you obviously Boy Scouts? When you say you're a Boy Scout, I think about a specific type of person that's in the nature, right? And so, what kind of experiences do you remember as a kiddo thinking, "God, this is great"?
Well, I mean, I don't know. There's been some, I still remember the first hike I ever went on, because what happened was my family wasn't very affluent, and so we couldn't afford the best gear, and my boots fell apart on me. So I ended up finishing this 5-mile hike in my socks. So, and that just goes to that whole goal setting thing. I was going to finish. It didn't matter. What choice do you have when you're 2.5 miles in?
Right.
It doesn't matter. So, I think one of the things was right towards the end of I won't say the end of my scouting career, because I'm actually still involved in scouting. So, one of the things I think that was very pivotal was working at a scout camp. So I was a counselor for 2 years at a scout camp. And that's, just having that experience of teaching other people, trying to, just gain that appreciation. I lived in a tent for, 2.5 months.
Yeah.
It was pretty awesome. It just stuck with me. Everything about it was great.
Yeah. So kind of fast forwarding back to what you do now. So you talked a little bit about the projects you've got going on, but maybe framing it differently. What are some things you love about your job?
I think one of the things I really like about it is the fact that, well, especially now, I won't say this is true about the first 2.5 years or three that I spent in this job because it was under a different administration with a completely different attitude. And so my main goal at that time was to keep my head down and not be noticed.
Yeah.
So, so, but at the same time, we still got our work done, but it was like, okay, because that previous administration also tried to cut our agency out of the budget. So that's, I'm a little bit biased
Yeah.
about that. But with this new administration, what I really like is the fact that, this whole outdoor school project we've got going is a result of the leadership, basically the deputy secretary coming to us. And I say us because we're such a small agency that, we, uh, we all kind of make decisions together. That's just kind of my leadership style, more of a coach than a boss. And then, hang on, I just gotta. Okay, never mind. So being approached by the leadership and saying, "Hey, you guys know what you're talking about. We need some help with this." And then, being being asked by the deputy secretary, if you could do anything to improve young people's knowledge about the environment, what would it be? And we all agreed it would be giving them a connection to nature, connecting them back to the natural world. I mean, some folks here, it's just the same as anywhere else. I mean, they live in a city the entire life. They've never been out. They've never even been in the forest, which is kind of remarkable to me. But that's just the reality of a lot of people's situation. And so, being able to think about, learn from others, and then actually execute something to alleviate a problem, is probably the best part about my job right now, is just and being able to collaborate with other folks and learn from other folks, because I do that all the time. I just had a call the other day with uh, the Backcountry Hunters and Anglers Association here in Kentucky, and so we were talking about this project, and I just learned a lot about how to go about, uh, some of the things we hadn't thought about before. And so that was very, it was great. And that just happened yesterday. So always learning.
And with that, what are some of the challenges or things that you've struggled? I don't say struggle with. What are some of the challenges you have in your current role?
Okay, so probably the first one is uh, budgets. So our budget was set in legislation in 1994 at a set amount of $150,000. So that has not changed because it was in there. We get the first $150,000. And then our other source, okay, so number one, we don't get tax. None of this is tax money. This is all from actually a different cabinet, the Energy and Environment Cabinet. So they, when people get fined for environmental issues, so they did, hey, you didn't put up a barrier to keep silt out of the stream or whatever. You owe us, $1,000 or whatever. So the first $150,000 of money that's collected for that comes to us in statute. Again, $150,000 in 1994 was a lot more than it is now. So the other source of funding that we have is interest off of fees and penalties. Oh, well, fees for dumping. So like solid waste disposal. So everybody pays a fee to, put their solid waste in. And so we get a percentage of the interest up to $1 million. Now, that has not, so that's varied between, I think 1 year before I ever got there, they got $1 million, but it's been as low as $1,000. So that means we don't really know how much we're going to get every year. So we can't plan on. And the other thing is, we don't get that $150,000 until it's collected. So we have to carry over enough funds to last us, 3 to 4 months before all that money comes into us. So budgeting's probably the biggest thing, and the uncertainty of it. Our agency is small. We don't have a whole lot of a budget, so I do a lot of grant writing. I put in the last 2 weeks, I've put in, I think, 8 or 9 letters of inquiry, kind of like the first thing, to a lot of private foundations, and we work with corporations. We just always hunting money. That's an obstacle because it keeps you from doing other things that you'd rather be doing.
Well, so as we wind down here, okay. Before I ask the one question, I got to ask what.
Okay.
I have a favorite question to ask, and it's, what is if you could do anything in the world, money wasn't an option, you do it for fun or hobby or just because you want to, what would be your dream job?
Oh, getting paid to travel. That's my favorite thing in the world to do, and that's why this last year's been so hard. But yeah, I'd love to be able to travel and be at a lot of places I haven't been yet. I got a pretty extensive bucket list, and it's been put off for a year. So I'm hoping in November I'm going to go to Belize. So that was on my list. So we'll see.
You got to get a shirt that says "You better Belize it."
Yeah, you know it.
Billy, before we let you go, my
Yeah.
final question is, if you for the young professionals and students out there that are thinking about a career in environmental education or something related, what are some pieces of advice you might give them as they're going through their education or their young career, as far as advice, professional or maybe even personal?
Okay. This is both. The number one lesson you have to remember is don't burn bridges. I don't care how difficult a relationship is with somebody, on a professional level or on another one. You just got to be very careful not to burn bridges, because I spent a lot of time in this job when I first got here repairing those bridges that my predecessor, I don't think through any kind of didn't intend to do that, but their actions. So you just have to be aware of the consequences of what you do when you're dealing with difficult people, and just be careful about that. And kind of along with that is never underestimate the power of networking. So anybody that you meet, anybody that you come in contact with at a conference, in your, when you're going, the reason I got the job that I had was because of my relationship with the professor that I had. So be very cognizant of the power of networking. Make sure that you connect with those people outside of whatever context that you met them. Follow up with an email. If you meet somebody who you think, wow, that person can really offer a lot for me, and you never know where you're going to end up. I mean, you really don't. So just be very thoughtful when you're interacting with other people. It's easy to blow people off, but sometimes you end up meeting them and they're like interviewing you for a job or something, and you're like, okay, well, maybe I shouldn't have said that. So those are the two biggest pieces of advice I can give you. Just be very cognizant of the power of relationships.
Yeah. It kind of reminds me, there's a philosophy that I hold dear to me, I guess, is reply to every email. Because I know, professionally, and the students are kind of getting into this as well, I guess. But when you get in the professional world, your email is the main communication. And I tell folks, it grinds my gears when I send a serious email and it gets ignored. So because of that, no matter what, I try to respond to an email. It may be, I don't know, I can't help you, or whatever. if that's the worst case scenario,
Right.
I make it intentional to respond to every email. And even if it's going to be delayed, hey, I can't get to this week or whatever it may be.
Right.
So, talking about, repairing relationships, like nobody
Right.
wants to be ignored,
Yeah. I will say that, I mean, this exact situation came up for me about 2 weeks ago with one of the folks who works for me. I kept getting, well, actually, all of the people who work for me, we just lost two part-time people. So we're back down to three. But, I had to say to them, I'm getting a lot of emails about you're not responding to folks. And so I said, okay, so now I'm going to put this in writing, and this is going to be our policy. You have 48 hours to respond to an email. And I don't care if that response is, I'll get back with you later, or I can't answer your question now, but I'll look into it. I said, and you have to make it a priority to get back with those people. So, I mean, that's just the policy now in our agency, is that you have 48 hours to get back with somebody. And if I get another email saying, I emailed them 3 times last week, then, then we'll have to deal with that. But yeah, that's great. That's to your point, you have to do that.
But, talking about relationships, right, is, no matter who's on the other end, and no matter who that person is or how good or frustrated that relationship may be, that's part of that, ensuring that you're putting the best foot forward and all of that.
That's true.
Well, Billy, thank you so much. I'm going to wrap this up. Like I said, I know you've got something else going on. So I sincerely appreciate you joining me today. And then I know we'll talk offline and whatnot, but
Okay.
thank you again.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me. And if, anybody has any questions, you got my email.
Sure.
So just tell them to email me, or and I'll get back with them.
Okay. Sounds
Okay.
good. Have a great week,
All
man.
right. All right. Thank you, man.
Yeah. Bye-bye.
Bye.